I work on an oil rig. We pulled up something that wasn't oil.
I need to get this down before they find me. Before the company sends their cleanup crew. Before what's left of my memories gets buried under NDAs and hush money and convenient accidents. My name is Marcus Webb, and until 6 days ago, I was a derrick man on the Triton 7, a deepwater drilling platform operating in the Gulf of Mexico, about 180 miles southeast of Louisiana. I say was because the Triton 7 doesn't exist anymore. Not officially. If you search for it now, you'll find maintenance records showing it was decommissioned 3 months ago. Satellite images of our coordinates show nothing but empty ocean. But I was there. We all were. And what we pulled up from 32,000 feet below the seafloor, it wasn't oil. Let me start from the beginning, because the details matter. They always matter in the oil industry. Every pressure reading, every mud weight calculation, every seemingly insignificant deviation from normal operations. That's what we're trained to watch for. That's how you survive out there, hundreds of miles from shore, standing on a steel island above water so deep that sunlight has never touched the bottom. I've been working offshore for 7 years. Started as a roughneck right out of high school, worked my way up to motorman, then finally made derrick man about 18 months ago. It's not an easy job. You spend most of your 12-hour shifts 90 feet above the rig floor on the monkey board, guiding 90-foot stands of drill pipe in and out of the derrick while the rig rocks beneath you. One wrong move, one moment of inattention, and you're either crushed by several tons of steel pipe or taking a 9-story fall onto the drilling deck. But the money's good. Really good. Especially on deepwater rigs like the Triton 7, where we work 21 days on, 21 days off. 21 days of brutal 12-hour shifts in the middle of the Gulf, followed by 3 weeks back home with my wife and daughter. It was worth it. Or at least, I thought it was. The Triton 7 was a semi-submersible platform, the kind that floats on massive pontoons anchored to the seabed by thick mooring lines. We'd been on location for about 4 months, drilling an exploratory well for Meridian Energy, one of the big independents. The well was designated Me 447, and from day one, it had been off. Nothing you could put your finger on exactly. Just small things. The drilling mud, that thick, viscous mixture of clay, chemicals, and water that we circulate down through the drill string to cool the bit and carry cuttings back to the surface, kept requiring adjustments. The weight was constantly fluctuating, even though we weren't changing depth or formation. Tommy Chen, our mud engineer, spent half his time tweaking the mixture, adding barite for weight, throwing in polymers to adjust viscosity, but nothing seemed to stabilize it for more than a few hours. It's like the mud's being absorbed or something, Tommy told me one night in the galley, picking at his meatloaf. We were both on the 0600 to 1800 shift, and it was around 1930, that dead hour after dinner when most of the day crew was trying to decompress before bed. The volume in the pits keeps dropping, but we're not losing circulation. The mud's coming back up. It's just different when it comes back. Different how? I asked. Tommy pushed his tray away, his food barely touched. He'd lost weight over the past few weeks, I noticed. We all had. There was something about this well that killed your appetite. Thicker. Heavier. And the color's off. We're using a standard seawater-based synthetic mud, should be this brownish-gray color. But what's coming back up is darker. Almost black. And it's got this smell. I knew the smell he was talking about. We all did. It wasn't the usual petroleum smell you get when you hit a hydrocarbon zone. This was something else. Something organic and rotten, like decomposing fish mixed with sulfur, and something I couldn't quite identify. Something that made your hindbrain scream that you should get away from it. The smell had started around 28,000 feet. That's when the real problems began. At that depth, we should have been well into the sedimentary layer, drilling through sandstone and shale deposited millions of years ago when this part of the Gulf was dry land. Instead, the cuttings, those small chips of rock that the mud brings back to the surface, were wrong. They looked almost fibrous. Like drilling through compressed wood pulp, except the geologist on site, Dr. Sarah Reeves, insisted it wasn't any known organic material. "I've sent samples to the lab in Houston," she told us during the morning safety meeting 3 days before it all went to hell. "But preliminary analysis is inconclusive. The structure is organic, definitely, but it doesn't match any known fossil formation. The carbon dating is giving us readings all over the place. Some samples appear to be 200 million years old. Others read as only a few thousand years. It's impossible. Both readings can't be right. But they kept us drilling." The company men, those suited representatives from Meridian who stayed in their air-conditioned offices and watched the drilling data on computer screens, wanted us to keep pushing. We were behind schedule. Every day of drilling costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. They'd invested too much to stop now based on some anomalous readings. I should have walked off then. We all should have. But we didn't. Because that's not how it works out here. You don't question the company. You don't refuse orders. You just do your job and collect your paycheck and try not to think too hard about the things that don't add up. The night it happened, I was up on the monkey board, guiding pipe as we tripped out of the hole. We'd been having problems with the drill string, unusual resistance at certain depths, like we were drilling through something that didn't want to be drilled through. The driller, Jake Morrison, had made the call to pull everything out and check the bit for damage. It was around 0200. The night shift. My favorite time, actually, when there was something almost peaceful about being that high up in the dark, nothing but stars above and the gulf stretching out black and endless below. The rig lights created this bubble of illumination, and beyond it was just void. I was guiding a stand into the fingers, those long metal brackets that hold the pipe in the derrick, when I noticed something on the pipe's surface. At first, I thought it was just drilling mud, caked on thick. But as I got closer, I saw it was moving. Pulsing. Like something alive. "Hey!" I called down to the rig floor, my voice catching in my throat. "Jake! We've got something on the pipe." The drilling stopped. In the sudden silence, I could hear it, a wet, slithering sound, like dozens of tongues licking metal. The substance on the pipe was spreading, creeping up the steel surface in thin tendrils that glistened under the derrick lights. "What the hell is that?" Jake's voice crackled through my radio. "I don't." The pipe shuddered. Not from the rig's movement. Not from the drilling equipment. This was something else. Something that came from inside the pipe. Or from something moving through it. "Pull it out." I shouted. "Pull it out now." But it was too late. The pipe erupted. Not with oil. Not with gas. With something that screamed. I don't mean it made a sound like screaming. I mean it was screaming, this black, viscous substance that fountained up from the pipe, and it was full of voices. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All screaming in agony, in rage, in something that might have been hunger. I fell backward off the monkey board. Would have died right there, 90 feet of straight drop onto the steel drilling deck, except my safety harness caught me. I dangled there, suspended, as that black substance sprayed across the derrick, across the pipe, across everything. Where it touched metal, the metal corroded. Just dissolved like it was nothing, releasing clouds of rust-colored dust. Where it touched the drilling equipment, the equipment stopped working. Just seized up, as if every moving part had suddenly fused together. And where it touched skin. Jesus Christ, where it touched skin. Ricky Patel was on the rig floor, just below me. A good roughneck. Had a wife and twin boys back in Corpus Christi. A single drop hit his exposed forearm, just one drop, smaller than a dime, and he started screaming. The skin where it touched turned black immediately, spreading like spilled ink through water. Up his arm, across his shoulder, toward his neck. But it wasn't just turning his skin black. It was changing it. Transforming it. I could see things moving under his skin. Things that writhed and coiled and pushed against the flesh from the inside, trying to get out. "Help me!" Ricky shrieked, clawing at his own arm. "Get it off! Get it!" His jaw dislocated. Just came unhinged with a wet pop. And something crawled out of his mouth. Something black and segmented, like a millipede made of congealed oil, except it had far too many legs and each leg ended in something that looked disturbingly like a human finger. Ricky collapsed. The thing that came out of him and Jesus, there were more, dozens more, pouring from his mouth, his nose, his ears scattered across the rig floor. Some of them were making sounds. Words, almost. Fragments of words and voices that sounded like they were being played backward through water. Abandoned ship. That was Captain Rodriguez, his voice booming from every speaker on the rig. "This is not a drill. All personnel to lifeboat stations. Abandoned ship." I hung there, swaying in my harness, as chaos erupted below me. The black substance was still fontaining from the drill pipe, spreading across the rig like a living thing. It pooled in the corners. It climbed the walls. It dripped from the overhead equipment, falling in thick globs that hissed and smoked when they hit the deck. And everywhere it went, the screaming followed. I managed to hit the release on my harness and climb down, not the ladder. There wasn't time for that, just a controlled fall using my gloves to slow my descent down the derrick support beams. My palms burned through the leather, but I barely felt it. The rig floor was a nightmare. Half the crew was trying to get to the lifeboats. The other half was either dead or transforming into something that used to be human but definitely wasn't anymore. Tommy Chen stumbled past me, his face a mask of that black substance. His eyes were gone, replaced by empty sockets that somehow still saw, still tracked my movement. His mouth opened too wide, far too wide, and that same millipede thing started crawling out. I ran. God forgive me, I just ran. Past the pump room where I could hear screaming behind the door. Past the mud pit area where the pits themselves had turned black and were bubbling like something was boiling up from below. Past the living quarters where the windows showed shadows moving inside, shadows that had too many limbs and moved in ways that defied anatomy. There were 53 people on the Triton 7 that night. By the time I reached the lifeboat station on the western edge of the rig, I only saw 12 others. Captain Rodriguez was there, his face pale, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Dr. Reeves. Jake Morrison. A handful of roughnecks and engineers whose names I knew but couldn't remember through the fog of terror in my brain. "Where's the rest of the crew?" someone asked. Nobody answered. We could all hear the screaming. We could see the black substance spreading across the rig like a cancer, consuming everything. The derrick was completely covered now, a skeletal tower dripping with that living darkness. And at the base of it, where the drill hole descended into the earth, something was emerging. It was too dark to see clearly. Maybe that was a blessing. But I caught glimpses. A mass of writhing tendrils, each one thick as a telephone pole. Segments that might have been body parts, limbs, torsos, heads all fused together into something that violated every natural law. And faces. God, the faces. Pressed against the surface of the thing like people drowning behind a black membrane, mouths open in eternal screams that we could hear even from 100 yards away. What the hell did we drill into? Jake whispered. Dr. Reeves was shaking, tears streaming down her face. Not into, she said. Through. We drilled through something. Some kind of barrier. Something that was keeping this, sealed away. Sealed away from what? From us. Her voice was hollow. From everything. This is old. Older than the geological formations we were drilling through. Older than the fossils. This has been down there since before life as we know it. And it's been hungry. So hungry. The lifeboat launch was chaos. People pushing, shoving, everyone trying to get off the rig at once. I found myself in the second boat with Captain Rodriguez, Jake, and 7 others I didn't recognize in the dark and panic. The davits lowered us toward the water, motors whining. 40 feet. 30. 20. The black substance had reached the waterline. I watched it spread across the Gulf's surface like oil, except it moved against the current. Moved with purpose. The water where it touched turned dark, opaque. And beneath that darkness, I could see things moving. Large things. Things that had once been fish or dolphins or maybe even whales, but were now something else. Something wrong. Our lifeboat hit the water with a splash that seemed far too loud. The motor started, thank Christ. It started and we powered away from the rig as fast as the small engine would take us. Behind us, the Triton 7 was dying. The structure was collapsing, metal groaning and shrieking as the black substance ate through support beams and pontoons. The thing from below was fully emerged now, a nightmare shape that defied comprehension, pulling itself up the drill hole like a spider climbing from a well. The air around it shimmered and bent, as if reality itself couldn't quite process what it was looking at. "Don't look back," Captain Rodriguez shouted. "Just keep going. Head for the mainland." But I did look back. I couldn't help it. And I saw the rig collapse in on itself, the derrick toppling like a felled tree, the whole massive structure sinking beneath the waves in a matter of minutes. The thing that impossible, ancient thing spreading across the water's surface, growing, expanding, reaching, looking for more to consume. More to transform. More to add to its collective mass of tormented flesh and broken minds. We radioed for help. But every frequency was dead. Just static and, underneath the static, what might have been voices. Or screaming. It was hard to tell the difference. The Coast Guard found us 18 hours later, drifting in the Gulf, half dead from exposure. They said we'd been hallucinating. Heat stroke. Dehydration. Mass psychogenic illness. They had explanations for everything. The Triton 7 had suffered a catastrophic structural failure, they said. Equipment malfunction. The rig sank. There were no survivors except those of us in the lifeboats. But I know what I saw. We all do. The 12 of us who made it off that rig, we know the truth. And we know why Meridian Energy is so eager to pay us off. Why they have us sign NDAs so thick you'd need a hand truck to carry them. Why the satellite images of our drilling location have been scrubbed, edited, altered to show nothing but empty ocean. Because they hit something they shouldn't have. Something that should have stayed buried. Something that's been down there in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean, since long before humans walked the Earth. Since before the Earth was even recognizable as the planet we know. And now it's out. I see the news reports. Unexplained die-offs of marine life in the Gulf. Fishing boats that go out and never come back. Offshore platforms that lose contact, then turn up empty or scuttled or sunk with no explanation. The CDC talking about new diseases emerging from the ocean, infections they can't identify or treat. But it's not diseases. It's not environmental damage. It's spreading. The company is trying to cover it up. They sent men to my house 3 days ago. Men in suits who smiled too much and made veiled threats about my wife and daughter if I talked. About accidents that could happen. About how easily people disappear. That's why I'm writing this now. I'm on a bus heading north, as far from the coast as I can get. I've sent my family ahead of me, told them to keep moving, not to stop. I don't know if it will be enough. I don't know if anywhere is far enough. Because here's the thing they don't want you to know, the thing that keeps me awake every night since we pulled it up from 32,000 feet below the seafloor. It was intelligent. Whatever that thing was, it was conscious. Thinking. Planning. And it knew we were there. It wanted to be found. It wanted to be released. We weren't drilling for oil. We were drilling through a seal. Through a barrier. Through something that was put there, countless eons ago, to keep it trapped. To keep it away from the surface world. Away from us. And in our greed, in our endless hunger for resources and profit, we broke it open. We let it out. We gave it access to our world, to our oceans, to everything that lives in the waters that cover 70% of our planet's surface. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it came from or who or what imprisoned it down there in the first place. But I know it's ancient beyond comprehension. I know it's hungry. And I know that it can change things. Transform them. Make them part of itself. Add them to the collective. If you're reading this, if this message somehow gets out before they find me and silence me permanently, stay away from the ocean. Stay away from the Gulf. And for God's sake, if you see anything black spreading across the water, anything that moves against the current and makes the sound of screaming, run. Run and don't look back. Because we pulled up something that wasn't oil. Something that should have stayed buried. Something that's been waiting down there in the dark, patient and hungry, for longer than our species has existed. And now it's free.